I remember this so vividly, and telling it now, I realize just how unbelievable it sounds. I swear, though, it really happened. It's been in the back of my mind and has recently came to my conscience. When I was about 5 or 6, I went to a private school which was also my church. We went on a field trip to this farm pumpkin patch which was having a small fair. They had all the classic games and such. There were horse rides, hay rides, food, and random games. They had a maze they'd made especially for small children. It was made from hay bales and close to the ground, so you'd have to crawl through the maze rather than walk. You couldn't stand either because they made a roof of hay as well. This next part makes the experience even more unbelievable, and I understand why. I wanted to go in this maze because I wanted to show my mom how smart I was for solving it. I crawled into the entrance and turned the first corner. What I saw is engraved into my brain to this day. When I turned the corner, it was like I wasn't even in the maze anymore. I looked down this, what I'd call a hallway. This hall was tall but thin, and I'd be able to stand up in it if I had not been frozen in fear. At the end of this hall were 2 people. One was inhumanly tall and the other looked like a little kid. The taller one had long, straight black hair. The shorter one had what looked like to be matted black hair. Both had their backs to me with their arms stretched up a wall. They were clawing at this wall as if trying to dig themselves out. They wore dirty white clothes and were covered in a red liquid I now assume was blood. When I regained the ability to move, I backed out of the maze quickly and looked around. The maze was still as it was when I went in, and my mom was still encouraging me to finish the maze. I just walked over to her and said I can't because it hurt my legs. I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't tell anyone for that matter until now. I haven't been to that farm in about 10 or 11 years, and if it's still there, I have no intention of going back. What I want is this story to serve well for anyone who is new to the bar scene or is, to be brief, gullible. I'm not saying it isn't fun or not worth it, but if you aren't careful, you can end up in a dangerous or even life-threatening situation, kind of like I did. For backstory purposes, I am a 22-year-old male living in the Midwest, a soon-to-be college graduate, and usually a shut-in when it comes to social interaction. I don't hate people or have social anxiety or any of that crap. I usually just write my feelings better than I say them. Anyway, this story took place about 1.5 years ago. I was halfway through my junior year in college and my birthday falls on Christmas Eve. During breaks and away from my friends at school, so I don't usually have any parties or anything of the sort, at least not around the holidays. However, this was my 21st birthday, and several of my girlfriends really wanted to take me out to enjoy the gay scene in the capital. My city is large, but there are no gay bars in the area. I was going with several friends, including my best friend at the time who we'll call Vera. Vera was my go-to and confidant. It was her who informed me to be careful about who I met, to be as sharp as I usually was, but I brushed off her concern. I was smart. I thought, no one could do something like that to me. Now, to the interesting part of the story. The bar was called the Unicorn, and it was one of the largest bars I've ever seen. Nice neon lights and not too busy for such a cool-looking place. My friends and I entered the place and they immediately made their way to the counter, chatting up the bartender, who gave them a handsome smile as they informed him of my birthday situation. He made an announcement over the loudspeaker and gave me my first drink for free. He seemed nice, so we chatted for a few minutes before his duties take him elsewhere, and I'm left alone at the bar while my friends were out dancing. I didn't want to ruin their good time because I was too awkward to dance anywhere but in my own room. So I ordered a second drink and a third drink, hoping alcohol would make the experience better. I thought for a moment that it had. A hand touched my shoulder. It was pretty strong but also not uncomfortable. I turned my head and was surprised to see a really handsome guy behind me. He was tall and had a nice haircut with a well-trimmed goatee. A man who took good care of himself. So why the hell was he talking to me? He introduced himself as Jacob and said he was new in town and looking to make friends, and he wanted to wish the birthday boy well. I'm trying my best to remember exactly what he said. I was slightly tipsy after 3 shots, considering I was new to drinking. We talked for a while about my school and his career, which he said was nursing. He flirted to the point of groan-inducing, but I bared no ill will. I enjoyed the attention. It was about 11 when I ran into Vera again, and she asked me about my friend on the way to the bathroom. She seemed excited for me and said she wouldn't interrupt. She would just watch and be jealous from afar. I laughed and told her I had to go to the bathroom and get back. And then, when I got back, I got stupid. Turns out, Jacob had ordered us a couple of rounds while I was in the bathroom, and like an idiot, I took it without a second thought. And he got a smile on his face after I knocked that drink back. It made his face look creepy. He asked me a pointed question at this point. It was still early in January, and he asked, "Do you have any New Year's resolutions or goals?" I shook my head and said I don't believe in them. He smirked again, making me shiver with a bad feeling. "I do. In fact, I plan on accomplishing mine very soon." I'm not sure how everyone thinks losing consciousness is like, but it's like a really fast falling asleep. Everything just goes black and you feel weightless. I wasn't sure what had happened when I woke up, but I am flailing around and screaming as the bright light hits my face when a hand pushes me down gently. I'm about to tell Jacob to leave me alone when it's not Jacob. It was the bartender, who had Vera and my other friends behind him, making sure I was okay. I asked the only logical question, what the fuck happened? What the fuck happened was that Jacob had drugged me and was planning God knows what for me. But luckily, my friends had approached the bartender earlier that night, and when Jacob told him he was taking me home, he called Jacob on it, saying he hadn't seen me come in with him and that he was calling the cops if he didn't let me go. He informed my friends of the situation, and the bouncer helped carry me to the manager's office to sleep off the drugs. It was at this point I realized it was 6 a.m. The bar had been closed for 2 hours, and they were watching me most of the night. I was lucky nothing had happened. The drugs hadn't harmed me in any way other than giving me a headache. But if that bartender hadn't been watching, I could be in a way worse place than I was. So my moral of the story is don't go to the bar alone, and, for the love of God, do not take random drinks. You might not get so lucky. Like everyone on Nosleep, I'm a horror fan. I've watched so many horror movies that it takes a lot to make me jump out of my skin. I've also tried using the Ouija board and all the rituals you can think of. I desperately wanted to experience something exciting. Be careful what you wish for, right? Seeking new thrills, I downloaded this app which helps you spot ghosts. Using the GPS in your own phone. I know what you're thinking now. It's bullshit. A children's toy. That's what I thought too, at first. But now I'm not so sure anymore. There are a few different things you can do with the app. First option has a picture of an old recorder. If there aren't any ghosts around you, you'll hear only static. But if there's some activity close to you, you could hear some creepy music or the static gets louder. Second option has a monitor that draws a line like the lie detector. If there aren't any ghosts around the line, it's straight, but if there are ghosts, it will draw a zigzag pattern. The stronger the paranormal energy, the bigger the pattern. Third thing you can do is to locate the ghost with a radar. The radar shows your own location and the ghosts are displayed as dots on the map. Black dot means the ghost is normal, blue dot means bad, and red dot very bad. Then there's the camera. It's a bit blurry, and when you see a ghost the screen turns static, then the ghost usually just disappears. I started using the app on last night. At first I got some normal ghost on my radar, and it was easy to spot and photograph them. I was just about to quit playing and go to bed when I saw 3 dots on the radar and they were approaching me. 1 blue and 2 reds. I wasn't sure if they are going to pass by my house or enter it. I was so excited. My house is at the top of a hill. From the front door window you could see the driveway to the street below. You could also see the neighbor's house, but they're a bit further away so everyone has their own privacy. I live in a peaceful neighborhood and it's usually dead quiet at night, maybe too quiet, especially at times like this. Tonight the only sound I could hear was the rain and the low static noise of my ghost app. The 3 dots had completely stopped in their tracks, which was weird because normally they keep moving until they just disappear from the map. I listened to the old recorder and besides the static it was all quiet. I checked out the monitor and it was drawing a small zigzag pattern and my phone was vibrating a little. I looked at the radar again and the dots were still there, just below the hill where I live. Because things weren't proceeding, I thought the app had crashed and I turned it off. After reading a few stories from Nosleep, I started to feel sleepy so I went to bed, but when my head hit the pillow, I was wide awake. I decided to look at the ghost app one more time before trying to get some sleep, and, lo and behold, the 3 dots were still there. However, this time they were moving. Slowly but surely they were creeping up the driveway. Now all the monitors were going crazy. The zigzag pattern was outrageous, and my phone was vibrating as hard as an old Nokia. The static noise was loud as fuck, and somewhere in the static, I could hear rain falling down and some heavy footsteps, like someone was dragging their feet on the gravel. I quickly googled those sounds, and it appears no one else has ever heard them while using this app. I sat up in my bed, eyes now completely focused on the cracked screen of my old Samsung Galaxy. I was still excited, listening to the creepy sounds, unable to stop myself. The 3 dots had now stopped on my yard. I got off my bed and wrapped myself in a comfy bathrobe. Why not smoke a cigarette before going to bed, and catch a few ghosts on my camera while I'm at it? Nothing can go wrong. It's just a fake, right? I stepped outside and stood on the porch with a cigarette in my mouth. I spun around with my phone in my hand, expecting to catch a few pixel thingies on the screen. It was still raining, and raindrops were falling heavily on the tree leaves, like someone was bombing them. Even though I live in a safe neighborhood, I'm always careful when I'm outside at night, so at this point a slight uneasiness had crawled up my back. Do you know the feeling when you really have to look over your shoulder, or else something bad might happen? That's how I felt. So I turned around, still looking at my yard through the camera. Because it was dark outside, the screen was black too. But then I saw 3 bright orbs in the darkness. I knew for sure that those didn't belong to this ghost app, so I put my phone in my pocket and looked around with my own eyes. I have poor vision when I am not wearing glasses, and this was one of those times. However, I think I saw something foggy in the far corner of my yard. It It was just fog, something gray. It wasn't shaped like a person, but it looked like it wasn't supposed to be there. I admit I was a bit scared, so I hurried back inside and locked the door. I looked at the app again, and as you might guess, the 3 dots were still on my yard. I felt like I've had enough, so I turned off the app and watched some Supernatural before falling asleep with the lights on. Today was a normal, uneventful day. I spent time with my sister and almost forgot last night's incident. However, in the evening I opened the app again and I saw something weird when I looked through the camera. It was fast and it might have been my imagination, but I think I saw a shadow of a person in my living room through the camera. I'm not sure if all of this is just in my imagination, but I'm feeling a bit nervous as we speak. Like the whole atmosphere in my house has become oppressive or something. I'm also thinking about deleting the Ghost app, but at the same time I feel like I'm too addicted to it. I'll update if anything else happens. So over the summer, me and my best friend, let's just say her name is Taylor, we're hanging out at her house browsing YouTube, listening to scary stories. But when we ran out of stories to watch, we decided to go on a walk down the trail about a mile from her house. It was a warm, sunny day and we got kind of hot, so we decided to stop and have some water. As I bent over to get my bag, I hear a car slowly drive by. When I turn around, I see a tired, beat-up looking man with blonde, greasy hair looking to be in his 20s, driving a white minivan which was relatively dirty. He yelled at us that he'd like to join us on our walk. I politely declined and said no thank you. He scowled at us and sped off. About an hour and a half later, we came to a stream that had plenty of trees surrounding it. We sat down under the shade and just talked for a little while eating some snacks, when that same guy comes around the corner of the creek and said,
"I thought I'd find you guys here."
I immediately get a creepy vibe. Taylor nudges me and whispers that we should run. I tell her no, he's too close. So I tell the man that we were just stopping for a break and should really get going, when the man looks down and over at his van because we were also near a bridge. We see that there are 2 other men inside. He gestures for them to come over. I immediately jump up and we bolted out, dashing away with him close behind. He chases us for 5 minutes or so with the other men trailing behind him, when Taylor trips over a rock and I leap back to pull her up. He gets close enough to pull my hair so hard my head snaps back. When I hear Taylor scream for him to fuck off, he says,
"But you're just so beautiful."
I start screaming and thrashing around when Taylor grabs a stick and starts hitting him with it so hard I thought I heard the stick crack. He lets go and falls over, clearly injured. We dash off, sprinting all the way to her house. When we got to the house, we didn't tell our parents. We just went straight to bed. Later that night, I awoke to lights shining through the window. I opened the blinds half awake to see the white van. I practically punched Taylor to wake up out of fear and panic. We run to her brother's room and pound it on his door. When he opens it, we immediately explain what happened. He runs over to the pantry and pulls out the shotgun, runs outside and cocks the shotgun. The van immediately rips out of the driveway, never to be seen again. I have since avoided the trail and go to Taylor's house every weekend. I will never forget this, and I will never go back to the trail. My whole life, my father was a trucker. He towed, hauled, shipped, and anything else you can think of. Whenever he could, he'd bring me along with him. It was always fun, sleeping in the back or getting to eat at some random truck stop with him. Quality father and son time. And I got to see the country around us as well. Granted, This wasn't always so happy. Besides breaking down in some random back road or threatened by some hillbillies with a gun, we had some bad experiences. Most of them occurred to our most frequent visiting state, Pennsylvania. The yard my father worked for did business with another one up there. But of course, it meant we had to make a long, often aggravating trip on dark country roads or a winding mountain in the worst of conditions. This one took place on a particularly freezing winter night. It was just before Christmas and my dad took me on the trip because my older brother was busy at work for the weekend and he needed someone to help him carry chains and unload a trailer for a client. I won't disclose the exact location of where this took place because 1. I don't want anyone to try this, 2. You'll probably get shot by hillbillies, and 3. I never knew the exact place. We just called it Redneck Valley, PA. But anyway, we were driving a brand new white Mack truck with a trailer full of food. Our client didn't run any stores, but he had the money, so we made the crazy run. We packed a few jugs of water and multiple bags of jerky with us before we left our home state, New Jersey. We had already drank 2 jugs and ate 3 bags of jerky, and by now, it was pitch black and snowing like crazy out. We were on a mountainside, driving slowly so we didn't end up driving off the side. Least to say, we were fucked. But we managed to do it. It was about 12:30 a.m. and the snow had gotten too much to handle. We decided that we would pull over and rest at the next general store. Just the comfort of some human life would be perfect, rather than being trapped in the snow in the woods. But as we made our way around the bend, we just caught the glimpse of what looked like a big Rottweiler or pit bull on the road. Understandable. It's not like no one lived on the mountain. A dog is destined to get loose every now and then and wander the road before returning home. But before we could stop, we ran over the large black-haired canine and even heard the loud thud as the truck and trailer ran over its body. My father cursed loudly and immediately pulled the truck to a dead stop in the snow and kicked his door open. I followed. We ran to where we felt like we hit him or her, but we couldn't find anything. No body, no whimpering dog, not even blood. We did find a few large paw prints, but the snow was covering them too quickly. We just knew they were heading off-road into the snow. We don't know how it survived. We clearly hit it, but it ran off. We were now standing in the snow, freezing our asses off while wearing a pair of black and gray snow jackets. Me wearing a New York Jets hat and him with a fire department hat. We looked like stereotypical New Yorkers, except we were from New Jersey, but we spent enough of our timeline in New York. Anyway, there we were, puzzled as to how a dog could survive getting hit with that big of a truck, not wanting to die. We just made a break for the truck and cranked the heat up before we froze. We started up and made our merry way again, until an hour later, we had finally found a store of sorts. It had 2 cars in the lot on the side of the mountain surrounded by trees. It wasn't really a lot, more of a dirt patch, but it worked. We pulled out and parked along the side. It was all closed down, but a guy came out and shouted to my father. He said we could park for the night, but we had to be out by morning. We agreed, and hit the bed in the back of our sleeper. We slept until about 4 a.m. when we were woken up by a loud slamming behind us. We had no idea what it was. It sounded like our locked trailer door slamming against the side of the trailer. First instinct was that we were A, getting robbed of our load by some angry hillbillies, or B, forgot to lock the doors and so the wind blew it open. By the sound of our cargo and chains being rattled around in the back, we figured A. By the time we both had pulled on barely enough to clothe us in the summer and grabbed our guns, who or whatever was in the back had moved on. We got back there, trudging through the now 3 feet of snow in pajama pants and boots, 2 pistols in hand. After making sure the dark trailer was empty, I climbed in and looked around. We had a few crates of fruits and vegetables, 2 of which were on their sides and one had its top ripped off. Hooks of meat hanging from chains and a chain of turkeys were on the ground, and a few chunks of meat missing, almost like a large dog or wolf had eaten and moved on. We had large jugs of milk and crates of cheese in the back. Not much was missing from that save for a split jug or 2, but the big missing detail was our cow. In the shipment, we were delivering meat from a big hunting outlet, sells wild and domestic meats and food. Our client had ordered enough food to feed a family of 25 for a few months, and then some, one of which was a full-grown, freshly butchered bull. They already stripped the legs and such from the body, and it was just that, a torso. They threw the bones in bags for dogs, and the large torso was loaded onto the truck by 5 men. That's how large it was. And the price? I don't even want to think about. And somehow, the large bull body was gone. Completely stripped off the chain from where it was hung. Not a trace of it left, save for some gristle and blood on the hook. There were no footprints on the snow around us. Again, this could be due to the amount of snow falling from the sky. My father told me to come around and look at the lock, so I did. It was ripped right off. It had 2 chains come around and close around the handles of the door. It was ripped right at the link, and on the very bottom of the door was a large scratchy mark, gray from the loss of paint and deep into the metal itself. Claw marks. I was perplexed. Not one animal in this whole area could do that. Mountain lion wouldn't snap a chain in half. Dog and a coyote couldn't either. And bears were in hibernation. What in God's holy name could have done it? In all honesty, I was frightened. The next morning, we banged on the door of the general store owner and apologized for not being out yet, and explained our situation. He went pale on mention of it. He told us to come back in and sit down, which we did. He then told us about an urban legend. He talked about how mutilated, half-eaten deer would be found on the side of the road, or mountain lions would be found either half dead or their throats eaten, and how many hunting dogs would go missing or wind up dead in the woods. He then went on to tell us about the common killer, the hound. He described it as a large black beast who didn't resemble any man-breed dog or wolf. It was big, angry, and no bullet could stop him. He slapped a newspaper on the desk in front of us. It read, "Satan's dog set free. Local law warns not to leave pets tied outside." And under it was a drawing of what looked like a shaggy Rottweiler. The newspaper went on to say about dead dogs and livestock. Even a child went missing near the woods. It sounded like an overreaction to a wolf, except there are no wolves in PA, and one wouldn't survive long enough to kill dogs, cougars, and bears. Me and my father were spooked. We didn't automatically believe we were robbed by a demon dog, but we didn't know what would carry a giant bull out into the freezing cold and disappear. We set off as the day lifted, still snowing like crazy, but it was bearable. We ended up losing some pay for the split or lost meat. We just told the client that a dog or coyote got in the back and must have eaten it or pulled it out, and that we forgot to lock it. Easier than telling them about a dog from hell, if that's even what it was. We headed our way back home the next day and pulled into a truck stop on the bottom of the mountain. There, my father picked up a little souvenir and slapped it on our back bumper, proudly with a chuckle as he got back in the truck. I checked it out and laughed before getting in myself. We then drove off back to New Jersey with the new bumper sticker that read, "Beware of Hellhound." I should have never picked up that photo. It started 2 weeks ago when I did some urban exploration at an abandoned mental hospital. I decided to check out the hospital around dusk when it was just light enough to see without using a flashlight. Don't want those security guards to get me for trespassing again. The hospital was only 1 story tall with just a few wings, but emanated an opposing grayness that went hand in hand with the forest of dead trees surrounding it. After walking around the building for a couple of minutes, I came to one of the main entrances on the south wing. I peeked through the foggy glass. It looked like the place had been ransacked by the employees after their final shift 30-odd years ago. There were medical records scattered all around, rusting filing cabinets smashed to the ground bleeding out files, and hospital beds turned over and on their side strewn around the entrance. It made me think I was about to find myself waking up from a coma in a zombie movie. I looked at the tarnished handle in front of me, begging me to come in. With only a second of hesitation, I pulled the handle on the door. Locked. Not expected, but still inconvenient. So I crept along the edges of the building, pulling up on every window until the building decided it wanted me in. Finally, I came to one window that was easy to pull up. I definitely wasn't the first person to have used this makeshift entrance. I found myself in a closed, empty room, wallpapered with yellowing newspaper. The words, "Open the door," were painted above the doorframe to the hallway by some kindred trespassing soul. Never one to disobey a spray-painted suggestion, I opened the door, walked into the hallway, and discovered another scene of chaos frozen in time. Only this scene had 50 dusty Polaroids of tired-looking people meticulously glued to the far wall in rows of 5. Each Polaroid had been vandalized with Sharpied-on horns, X's over eyes, and various scars on their face, except for one photo in the exact middle of this Patient of the Month wall, which showed an old man with wide eyes and a drooping face. On this photo was a Sharpied black grin that stretched off both sides of his head. So I took this photo as a memento of trespasses for which I won't be forgiven. Moving down the hallway, my flashlight lit up the hospital rooms, only differentiable in the amount of files and broken glass that littered their floors. I walked through the cafeteria whose contents had long gone rotten, past a completely tiled room with puddles of water still on the ground. At the end of the hallway, I saw a wooden door seemingly unmarred by the surrounding dilapidation with a glow of yellow light illuminating the tile just below the door. I slowly walked up to it, footsteps echoing in the empty building. I put my hand on the well-worn doorknob. The coldness made me shiver. I began to turn it, put my ear to the door, blood pounding in my eardrums. A low radio-static voice was heard through the door. I let go of the knob and shakily, silently, stumbled to the window that let me in. As I got in my car, I took the photo out of my pocket and saw the man's face smiling at me. Back in the pocket you go. The next week was a blur of the usual life. Breakfast, traffic, office, computer, bed. 8 days after my little adventure at the hospital, I began to notice some strange happenings. Power flickering while I was playing video games, footsteps coming from upstairs when I was alone in the house, shadows that didn't quite match up with the light source. I figured that this stuff was related to the picture of the presumably dead man that I took from the haunted hospital. So I went to the dresser that I tossed the picture on after I got home a week and a half ago. The Polaroid was face down with the writing, June 6th, 1986, penned onto it. Clearly this was not something that would be good for my health if I kept it in my possession. So I took it outside, took out my white lighter, and in just a few seconds, The ashes of all my supernatural problems blew away in the wind. But things only got worse, and now I am writing this from an old phone in my closet so I don't have to look at its face. The night of the picture burning, I went to my bedroom, flicked the light off, turned the AC on, and easily fell asleep. In the morning, I went to hit the snooze button on my alarm, but my arm kept hitting air. Unable to sleep through the shrill beeping, I rolled over and opened my eyes to see my bedside table on its side and my alarm clock halfway across the room. This isn't the first time I've walked in my sleep and knocked something over, so I got up, put the nightstand and alarm clock back in place, put my work clothes on, closed the window, flicked the light off, and got ready to start my day. I got home and did the usual internet browsing before bed. It was time to grab a beer, so I put my laptop down and got my phone out to continue browsing while walking to the kitchen. I went to open the door of the fridge but found it was already open. How convenient? I looked up and saw that every pantry door was open. Slightly less convenient. Well, I'm in no mood to deal with this, so I went to my bedroom, flicked the light off, saw a shadow of a man outside my window. God, do I really want to look? Flicked the light on, didn't see anything. I flicked the light off, closed the window, and had a very hard time falling asleep. I awoke to the sound of tapping. The full moon made it possible to see around my room. What's that noise? Is it my bedroom door? Nope. Is it coming from downstairs? No, it sounds too close for that. Rolled over and looked out the window. 3 thin branches hitting the glass. That's good. Back to sleep now. The action seemed to have subsided over the next few days. I figured that getting rid of that picture must have worked. Tonight, I went up to bed, flicked the light off, closed the window, and fell asleep pretty quickly. Oh my god, I have to be up in like 2 hours. I need to get a ladder and cut these branches tomorrow. I rolled over to grab my headphones off the dresser so I could listen to music and fall back asleep. The dresser was thrown across the room. Sleepwalking again? I pulled up the flashlight on my phone and lit up my way across the room. Oh my god, these branches! I shined the light at the window. Oh god. My blood turned ice cold. Waves of goosebumps cascended through my body. I can't move. I can't breathe. Poking through the window was a gray face with a grin tearing the skin from his face. Flesh dripping from his jowls. Massive eyes, a void of black. God, I've never seen a smile so wide. His blood-streaked tongue reached to his chin, and his row of huge fangs were illuminated with my flashlight. He threw himself through my window with his inhumanly long gray arms and launched himself toward me. I screamed louder than I ever had before and dropped my light, engulfing the both of us in darkness. I sprinted through my upstairs hallway, hearing his ungodly long legs step closer and closer to me. I rocketed into the spare room, threw the door closed, and ran to the closet. It smashed through the bedroom door like it was nothing, and skulked around, a predator stalking its prey. Fingers tapping on every surface, sniffing intently like a wolf catching the scent of a wounded deer, drooling, licking its scarred lips with its horrific tongue. I jumped as I heard him throw the nightstand against the wall. I saw it look at the closet, then run to it. It looked through the silt in the closet doors and we came face to face. The smell of death coming from its mouth made me nauseous. I can't look. I sit down, back resting against the door, and wait. Wait for what? I don't know. I could hear the birds chirping outside now. It's not leaving. I could still smell it. I could feel him tapping the door on my back as I whisper over and over, "Don't open the door." Hey guys, thank you all for watching my video, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. So I just want to say thank you to the subscribers that submitted their stories. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. And if I didn't get to your story, don't worry, it's all saved. But anyways, I'm sorry this video was a bit late. As you can see, it was long. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. But anyways, guys, as always, like I said before, thank you all for watching. And just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.